Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on tonight's edition of Wave News Extra 8:05 on this Monday night with not much of a dusk or a sunset. That's kind of pretty much wrapped up for us and some warmer weather on top of that as we take a live look observing that cross bridge traffic and enjoying the downtown Louisville skyline. As far as what's ahead of us for this last week, last couple days in September, make sure to join us tonight at Wave News at 11 for that forecast breakdown from the storm tracking team and chief meteorologist Kevin Harden. Certainly going to look forward to that as we're getting closer, hopefully, into that deeper fall-like pattern. And we appreciate you joining us tonight. I'm Jose Sosaya from inside the Wave Now studio. Whether you're joining us through the Wave Now app on your smart TV devices or on our different social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X. Always appreciate you coming in to join us as we sort of recap, unpack, unwind some of the bigger stories we've been following for the earlier part of the day. And as any breaking news comes in, of course, checking on our feeds from our computers and our systems here to share with you, and then checking in on whatever developments those might be coming up later tonight on Wave News at 11. So we're going to jump right into some of the bigger stories of the day. In fact, it starts with, again, a tragic outcome because police tell us two people died after a shooting in an apartment complex in Okolona. LMPD said it happened just after 10 this morning, and they weren't giving exact information on ages when we last checked, though they did describe the two victims as young men. And I'm going to bring you out to the scene where our crews were earlier today. And our crews, this was the view we had from Falcon Crest Apartments in Okolona, trying to talk to police and neighbors where we could. At one point, our crew out there relayed this information back to us that a woman came running up to the scene, trying to get information on her son. We saw her drop to the ground, screaming and crying. The family, in that moment asked us to make sure we didn't record just the agony that happened in the moment, painful and raw moment. As far as the other information we were able to glean, LMPD says neighbors heard the gunshots around 10:15 at one of the apartments in this complex. Officers got to the apartment. They found the bodies of two young men riddled with wounds. And we talked to a neighbor who said it was scary and devastating to have heard that this happened.
They're just scared. They're scared to walk out of their apartment. They're scared for their family. They're scared for their kids. They're scared of what might come through their walls. And for me to live just right up there, I'm scared.
So her name was Christina Short, and she tells us she'd only ever seen a young mother and her baby at this particular apartment where she says it might have happened. LMPD says neighbors even saw multiple suspects leaving that apartment on foot, so walking away from whatever might have happened. It is an active investigation. No one has been arrested that we've been able to check with as far as updates are concerned with our contacts with LMPD. But surely when they do have that confirmed, if they do arrest someone, we'll pass that information along to you all as well tonight. Moving on to some other stories. If you remember this pretty jarring phone video we shared with you last week, and if you look at, we're slowing it down just so you get a sense of what was going on. This was what the victim could get snippets and seconds of after, she told police, in essence, she was inappropriately touched. It was this man who police were looking for because he came up to this girl at a bus stop in Crescent Hill. Well, in the end, he was caught today, 27-year-old Jacob Burnett, after an anonymous tip came into police, and they charged him with sexual abuse. LMPD, again, repeating that this happened on September 18th near McCready and Richard Avenues. The girl was simply waiting to be picked up, and she took this video of Burnett as he ran away. He is expected in court tomorrow. We'll make sure to share that new information with you as we're there to listen to that arraignment and the official charges presented by the court in that regard. Moving on to some other stories. LMPD, in this case, arresting a man after he tried to record another man inside a locker room at the YMCA, at the downtown YMCA branch. This happened back in May on 2nd Street. Police arresting Dwayne Brady III. He was caught using his phone to record the victim as he changed clothes. We looked at the arrest report. It says the victim noticed Brady was watching him over the shower stall, and then Brady ran out of the locker room to hide before leaving the branch. The victim then told the gym staff what had happened. Brady's membership was canceled, now officially charged with voyeurism there. And of course, the YMCA membership revoked subsequently. More updates tonight. Two men seen here are accused of stealing copper wire from interstate lights here in Louisville. This is video from them in court. Daniel Bentley and Robert Kelly arrested on Saturday. Now, the rest reports in this case we were able to read copies of say police were called about someone stealing copper wire, and it was happening near I-65 around the Gene Snyder. They found both men actively stripping and burning this wire that's meant for infrastructure, hard, low, high use infrastructure there. LMPD says both Bentley and Kelly admitted to taking the wire with the intentions to scrap it for profit. Both men, Kelly and Bentley, were arrested, charged with criminal mischief and trespass of a key infrastructure, both pleading not guilty. They're in front of the judge for that hearing, and we'll be back in court next week. I want to bring you back here into the studio for one of our reports highlighting a little bit of bourbon history for folks who do follow this intently here in the state of Kentucky. And it was a celebration for Buffalo Trace in particular down in Frankfort. They say today they filled their 9 millionth barrel of bourbon since Prohibition. So it goes back well a ways. Wave News reporter David Mattingly shows us the milestone that he went to document for himself represents more than just Kentucky's signature spirit.
9 million barrels of Buffalo Trace bourbon since the end of Prohibition in 1933. It shows you how thirsty the world is for Kentucky bourbon. Buffalo Trace calls it a milestone, but this 9 millionth barrel from this distillery is also something of a sentimental vessel, containing memories of the work that went into it and the times we live in. This barrel marks a moment of resurgence for the storied distillery. It comes just months after the worst flooding since the 1930s swamped much of the operations.
No better example as this year: 2 floods, 2 Arctic freezes, a landslide, just to name a few. It's built on tradition and unwavering commitment to quality.
That quality and history translates to bourbon brands that are recognized globally. At a time when Kentucky distillers are collectively filling 2.7 million barrels a year, Buffalo Trace has emerged as a popular spot on the bourbon trail. And this barrel will help add to the distillery's mystique and the economic benefits that come with it.
The impact of this distillery goes beyond the gates out there. Every visitor who comes here helps support our hotels, our restaurants, our shops, our downtown businesses. Bourbon tourism is one of the strongest drivers of our local economy.
The barrel was carefully loaded into what they call the world's smallest bonded aging warehouse, where it will be on display for visitors as the liquid inside begins to age into the state's most celebrated spirit. That barrel will spend the next 2.5 years in that little building before it's replaced by the next millionth barrel. All totaled, the barrel we saw today will be aged a total of 10 years before the public gets to taste what's inside. In Frankfort, David Mattingly, Wave News.
So it'll be an auspicious moment whenever that next millionth barrel is added to the archives for sure. Thanks for sticking around and joining us tonight on Wave News Extra. We're going to reset to go over some more of today's top stories, including an update we got a little later in the afternoon for one man's appeal to the Kentucky Supreme Court to try to overturn his conviction and his sentencing in the murder of Crystal Rogers. So we're going to break some of that down for you, as well as things happening across the river in Indiana, and checking on a massive archaeological project to try and give a group of Union soldiers the proper final ceremony for what happened and put them in their resting place. So something we're going to break down as we head into commercial break, and be right back with much more of tonight's Wave Extra. We'll be right back. We are back at 8:16 on tonight's edition of Wave News Extra here in the Wave Now studio. Appreciate you sticking around. And as we get into more of today's headlines and updates, in fact, new tonight, one of three men who we saw this summer be found guilty, convicted in the murder of Crystal Rogers. He's trying to take his appeal now after he was formally sentenced all the way to the Kentucky Supreme Court. That man, in this case, being Joseph Lawson, his lawyers filing the motion. We got copies of those records today. Earlier this month, Lawson was sentenced to 20 years in prison for specifically the charge for conspiracy to murder, then 5 years for tampering with evidence. All told, that's combined a 25-year sentence for him. A judge previously denied Joseph Lawson's motion for a new trial. If you're familiar with all the coverage we have provided and stayed on top of from the summer and throughout both of these very high-profile trials. Lawson, along with his father, Steve, and Crystal's boyfriend at the time she disappeared, Brooks Houck, all three were found guilty in the cases brought against them, a jury finding all three of them guilty in the end for their respective charges. Rogers, a mother of five, if you remember, of course, over the years of coverage and trying to find any more answers into what might have happened. The same with federal and local investigators. But she was last seen in July of 2015, and her body still has not been found to this day. We'll now follow through on what the Supreme Court will respond to Joseph Lawson's appeal when it comes to trying to make that argument in front of the highest court in the state. Well, more updates tonight. Some MSD practice work is going to impact traffic on Dixie Highway all throughout the week. Take a look at some of what's happening here in the video. Saturday, a section of Dixie Highway near Depot and Cosmosdale Lane. They're reduced to one lane of traffic in each direction. Just gives you a sense of the kind of work that has to happen. MSD says it's doing flood wall closure practice for this part of the neighborhood. And this is some of the practice work they've done previously near downtown Louisville. But so it gives you an idea of the kind of traffic impact that would happen. This is a practice that's expected to last up to 12 hours. Traffic will return back to normal once they're done. The flood walls did play a huge role, a significant role in the historic flooding we all saw back in April. Dixie Highway's closure is one of the larger ones in Louisville's flood protection system. So just to give you a sense of how that would play out as far as the practice is concerned. Crossing over to Indiana, a congresswoman is joining now an effort to crack down on kids who would be using AI chatbots companions, that lawmaker being Aaron Houchin. AI chatbots, to put it, I guess, simply so, would be computer programs using artificial intelligence to mimic human conversations. They provide automated responses through text or voice. So Congresswoman Houchin and her peer, Congressman Jake Auchincloss, introduced what's called the AI Warnings and Resources for Education Act, or the AWARE Act. It's the first House legislation to address the growing use of AI chatbot companions by kids, by minors in essence. The bill would direct the Federal Trade Commission to create public resources for parents, educators, and the kids themselves, for the minors, on how to safely and responsibly engage in these systems. As you know, there's more coming up in the ones that already exist in earnest to this point, with software like ChatGPT and all the others that are available out there on the market. In a story that has a lot of layers of history to it, something our Brian Schlonsky worked on to capture the dig as it was happening, as it were. A story that this chapter, at least in the 21st century, has been 18 years in the making. The whole story goes back to 1865 of 22 black soldiers attacked and killed by Confederate guerrilla forces in the Civil War. To this day, where they were put to rest is a mystery. Might they have been buried in an old farm in Simpsonville? That was the question archaeologists wanted to ask and see for themselves if they could prove it. So Brian spent some time as these history experts dug into the earth, hoping to answer that question.
The properties around here have belonged to my families for over 200 years. It's why this piece of farmland in Simpsonville means so much to Jacob Bryan and his family. But what's buried below the surface could mean so much more for history and closure related to the deadliest conflict in American history, the Civil War.
My great-grandfather was alive when this took place. He was a kid, born in the 1850s.
What took place, a gruesome story of the horrors of war, like so many other stories from this dark time in American history. Some call it the Simpsonville Massacre, a cavalry of black soldiers assigned to drive a large herd of cattle from Camp Nelson to Louisville. They were fighting for the Union in exchange for their freedom. On January 25, 1865, the soldiers were ambushed by a group of Confederate guerrillas. 22 black soldiers would die, buried in a mass grave, their final resting place unknown.
I started on it 18 years ago.
Enter Jerry Miller with the Shelby County Historical Society.
If we find anything, then I think that's a success because we will have found these 22 men.
With a team of historians, archaeologists, forensic experts, and community members.
You have to be very delicate.
They have uncovered old diary entries, used infrared technology, poured through history books, stories from people, anything they could find to try to discover the final resting place of these soldiers and give them the proper respect and burial they deserve.
And he slowly goes little by little, and we have a series of archaeologists and archaeology students out there watching.
That research is what led them to this very spot on the Bryan family farm.
They buried the soldiers, put the dirt on top of them, and now they're digging up this history.
Juanita Landers White became interested in this story years ago, at first wondering if one of the soldiers was related to her husband.
George White, that has a headstone over there, was not any kin to my husband.
Missing in action 160 years. This group of about 24 people hoping to solve a mystery and honor this tough group of former slaves who paid the ultimate sacrifice for a freedom they sadly would never know.
They absolutely have not gotten the proper burial. Now we're going to make sure they're not forgotten. They'll never be forgotten.
Our thanks to Brian for that visit to this project. The team spent about 5 hours digging today. Sadly, it looks like the mystery of where these men's remains are is going to stay a mystery just a little bit longer. The Kentucky Archaeological Survey telling us at Wave News they dug 6 trenches, found nothing. It was, quote, deeply disappointing. They plan to continue processing the data that they do have and hope to come out to check on a new location sometime in the spring. In the winter, things would just get a little too complicated with the soil and the ground, as it were. Coming back after the break here on Wave News Extra, hinted a bit at this maybe as you were joining us on the different social media channels where in a life-saving situation, a group of paramedics, EMTs trying to save, a reptile center director who was bitten by a snake, providing antivenom, but then that created a new sort of controversial setup in that these experts and techs were not the ones who should have administered the medicine per state regulations. So whatever comes out of, the latest that we're able to look into, I believe at the hearing today, we're going to share some of that with you, a little bit more about what's happening in our neck of the woods. So stick around. We'll be right back with much more Wave News Extra after this commercial break. Welcome back tonight to Wave News Extra here in the Wave Now studio, approaching 8:27. We'll say rounding up to 8:27. Jose Sosaya here at the Wave Now desk as you're joining us, whether that's through your smart TV devices or on social media, as we unpacked some of the stories we've been covering throughout the morning and the evening, and just another avenue, another venue for you to connect with us. By the way, a reminder, if there's ever anything on your radar of things happening in your neck of the woods, could be right by your house or something related to work, and just stories that you feel we should keep track of, look into, dive a little further to see what could be going on and what all is factored into what's happening. Feel free to reach out, whether that's, leaving a comment here on the stream, reaching out to us, to the newsroom emails, to the phone lines, always available to take those conversations and see, if our team can look into what's happening to you and to the rest of the community, because we want to look into that and make sure that someone is paying attention to that for sure. Before we headed to break, letting you know about the story that was really interesting than when we first heard of it, and what will be even more intriguing is what happens tomorrow, now that we're less than a day away for finding out what a Kentucky paramedic team's medical future as EMTs is going to be. Put you back in the location where this was all happening, Powell County, of course. This hearing tomorrow is going to determine if the medical licenses of Powell County Judge Executive Eddie Barnes and other county EMS workers is going to end up being revoked. They recently gave antivenom to a man who was bitten by a venomous snake earlier this year, and the case now has gotten that kind of attention. The man who was bitten survived, but the state's EMS board says only wilderness paramedics can administer antivenom, whereas standard EMS workers are not required to complete antivenom specific training. And so here's a little bit more of the reaction from as far as the team involved and what their expectation is.
I think one thing that's important to understand is that antivenom administration has never been included in the baseline paramedic scope of practice. It was added to the wilderness paramedic scope of practice when the wilderness paramedic was created. With antivenom being a very uncommon, class of medication and something that is not included in the baseline paramedic, education, somebody without additional training would not have the knowledge to be able to safely administer antivenom.
So you just heard from Jeff Thurman, who's part of the board, the State Board of Emergency Medical Services. He says he does not speak for the board itself when discussing the situation. The hearing, though, is set for tomorrow morning in Frankfort, and it certainly will be interesting to see what decision, if any, comes from this next meeting for sure. Well, the man accused of stabbing and killing a Round County, Kentucky woman and her teen daughter appeared virtually in front of a judge today. You're looking at some of the images we're able to get from inside the court and the monitor there. Police and prosecutors saying Joshua Cottrell killed Kayla Blake and her 13-year-old daughter, Kennedy McWhorter. Friends saying Blake and Cottrell were in a relationship. Cottrell was previously convicted, and we've shown you the reporting when we learned it. The connection of a 2003 Hardin County killing of Richie Phillips. Phillips' body found in a suitcase floating in Rough River Lake all those years ago. Then 21-year-old Cottrell admitted to murdering Phillips, but claimed it was self-defense and accused Phillips of trying to rape him, essentially. Cottrell was released from prison in 2019, completed his mandatory re-entry supervision in October of that same year of 19. Well, now friends of the slain mom and daughter say they're going to continue pushing for justice in the pair's name for them.
We're just going to show up. We're going to be there for each other. We're going to be there for Kayla's family if they need us. And then, of course, if anything is asked of the courts that we need to testify or anything like that, we'd be more than willing. At the end of the day, it means that Kayla and Kennedy are never forgotten, that they're not remembered just because of this horrific tragedy, but they're remembered for the light that they've always shed and shined for everybody else.
That was friend Lacey Stacy, who said she was a friend of Caleb Blake's. Cottrell is held in the Montgomery County Detention Center at last check. His public defender entered a not guilty plea on his behalf in that hearing today. He's due back in court for his preliminary hearing on October 6th. More stories and updates. This is coming back into the Louisville metro area. There's a new leader coming to help direct the free public library system. You saw a picture of her, at least a professional picture just there. Mayor Greenberg announcing that Heather Lowe will be the library's new executive director. Greenberg's team saying that Lowe brings 16 years of library and archive experience. She's worked in Dallas for the last 11 years, though, serving in a bunch of different leadership roles. Earlier today, Mayor Greenberg posted a video on social media to introduce Lowe.
Joining us from Dallas, Texas, meet Heather Lowe.
Hi, Louisville. I can't wait to join the community and bring my dog and my bike to explore Louisville and continue offering great learning opportunities for every Louisvillian.
Yeah, Lowe will begin working here in Louisville November 10th. She replaces the interim library executive director, who was Barbara Sexton Smith. So an update on there that you can read much more about, of course, on wave3.com. Also, looking around the community, the Park Duval Community Health Center is going to open soon for immediate care services. We were at the facility when these plans for the new center were officially announced. The immediate care office is going to be at 3015 Wilson Avenue, and they're going to start serving people who need this kind of care treatment this Friday. Medical staff are going to be there to offer same-day treatment of illnesses, injuries that don't require the emergency room per se, so functioning as that urgent or immediate care. But this also includes preventative care, exams, vaccinations, screenings, and on-site diagnostic services. So the medical team says the office is going to be open from 9 in the morning to 7 in the evening on Mondays and Fridays. So we'll share that information of more with you tonight and throughout the week leading up to that grand opening for the Park Duval, the facility there for the immediate care. Come back here in the studio. In times of need, those who are in great distress or in emergency situations call on first responders to come there and not fully maybe understand what the situation might be, just on very minimal information is the first impression. Well, today, members of Louisville's Catholic community joined to honor those first responder sacrifice with their yearly Blue Mass. Our Wave News reporter Kirsten Foote stopped by to take a closer look at what this event means to them.
Monday's Mass is timely as those in the Catholic faith are marking the feast day of St. Michael, the patron saint of first responders. Dozens of police officers, firefighters, and other emergency agencies gathered inside a packed St. Michael the Archangel Church on Monday. The Blue Mass service gave thanks to current and former first responders while paying tribute to those who have died in the line of duty. For the Louisville Fire Department, it means honoring those dating back to the year 1858. Monday's service emphasized that those who serve our community are not alone.
Really means a lot coming from the community that we serve. Sometimes we get a little insulated, whether it's at the firehouse or I imagine, the police. I don't want to speak for them. But a lot of the police officers are out there by themselves. We're working as a team as firefighters, but to know that the community has the support for us, it means everything.
The first Blue Mass was held in Washington, D.C. in 1934. Here in Louisville, the Mass has been held for over a decade now. Reporting in Jeffersontown, Kirsten Foote, Wave News.
All right, thanks to Kirsten for that update. We're going to reset to have one more breakdown of some stories for you tonight on Wave News Extra. One of them being looking forward to a big milestone birthday or anniversary for the Brown Theater. That, of course, is celebrated in style with music. And looking forward to some fun community events that, as we now are jumping into October, perhaps marking that it is the month, and those traditions like the St. James Arts Fair, visits to the zoo for their sort of Halloween fall type celebration as well. Something we want to share with you when we do come back from break. So we're going to take this quick pause and be right back with much more of tonight's Wave News Extra. All right, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. We do appreciate it as we're looking at that clock, 8:37 on this Monday evening, starting the work week, about to wrap up the month of September, but do appreciate you spending a little bit of your night with us as we sort of, again, unpack some of the day's bigger stories and other things that are going on, not just here in our community, but things of interest wanted to share with you. And of course, as we're all preparing, this team working hard at night also prepares to give you the breakdown of the big stories of the day on Wave News at 11 for the night owls who are still up. But our reporting team is, of course, working on those stories of things that might have been happening later in the day and wanted to let you know what was going on and how that impacts you at home. So something happening around town is a pretty big anniversary, let's say, for the Brown Theater, almost 100 years old. That's coming up soon. And so to celebrate the milestone, the Kentucky Performing Arts Center wanted to host a special concert for the community last night because what else but a tribute through song? And I'm going to set up a little bit of the audio and make sure it's playing so you can see a little bit of the taste of how this was celebrated. So this was from the Canadian sing-along group Choir, invited to perform last night for the Centennial Celebration, singing classics from bands like Queen, Elton John, and, of course, Happy Birthday to the Brown Theater. A fun fact, if you did not already know, the women, the songwriters who wrote the tune for Happy Birthday were from Louisville. And on this specific birthday, it will be for the Brown Theater, officially opening its doors October 5th, all the way back in 1925. Let's look ahead to some more fun things for the community. What are the true signs of fall here, at least in our neck of the woods? The return of the St. James Art Fair. For those who might know that this is their favorite time of the year. This is, the week to make sure to enjoy it, and perhaps wishing the weather was a little cooler, but still looking like a great time to go check it out. The show runs from this Friday through Sunday. Rows of items of sculptures, jewelry, handmade wares to browse through Old Louisville. Hundreds of artists come in to showcase the work that they put into their pieces. You can expect to see it all on different types of mediums: clay, oil, pastel, wood, the gem work, the crystal. Also, plenty of food and drinks to enjoy as well. It is a 3-day event that is completely free to check out. So certainly something to seize the good weather that we should have coming and heading into the weekend. All right, let's move over to the Louisville Zoo because they're throwing an adult-only Halloween party to raise money for the programs that they sponsor and that they run. This is going to be called a Skelebration. It's after hours at the zoo, Wednesday, October 8th. So if you're available on Wednesday the 8th, it's from 6 to 9. Adults can go down the traditional Boo at the Zoo route, but again, for it being an adults-only event, there are special treats, cocktails, tastings along the way. We talked to a member of the staff at the Louisville Zoo. Actually, it was a conversation with our Don G about what guests could expect when they head out.
And you're going to get 4 opportunities to pick your poison. So you're going to have beer options, wine options, mocktail, and for the non-alcoholic, the mocktail options as well. And there'll be bites by a bunch of different restaurants.
So tickets to the event are already on sale, and you can get into the Halloween spirit on Extra and come in costume. There is going to be a contest to award the best dressed party goers and their creative designs for how they would like to go dressed to enjoy this celebration. One more story for you tonight, and a little bit in the realm of consumer health and updates, perhaps, is a conversation happening much more commonly now when it comes to GLP, and these are drugs for weight loss, and they're getting more and more popular. Certainly you've seen the ads that do market this for certain kinds of these uses for weight loss support. About 1 in 8 U.S. adults reported using this medicine at least once, and this is based on a very recent poll. And yes, weight loss for people on these drugs, the rate of what the loss is will vary from person to person, but there's another study that suggests the amount a patient loses may depend partly on their own biology. So again, going from person's biology to person's biology. Reporter Mandy Gaither explains a little bit of that in today's Health Minute.
They've become an important weapon in the battle against obesity. GLP-1 medications can lead to significant weight loss, but how much you'll lose on them varies from person to person.
There are lots of different root causes that can lead someone to have obesity. And anytime you have something like that, where you have multiple causes that can lead to something, there's never going to be a single medication that's going to work well for everyone.
Daniel Rotroff with Cleveland Clinic is one of the lead researchers of a study that looked at whether genetics has a hand in weight loss on these drugs. They keyed in on a gene called neurobeachin. It's a protein in the part of the brain that regulates how full or hungry you feel. While everyone has this gene, he says variations in it may affect how well the gene works.
And we found that some of the variation was associated with increased weight loss and some of it was associated with decreased weight loss.
Rotroff says evaluating this gene alone may not be accurate enough to make the decision on whether a person should or should not take GLP-1 drugs for weight loss, but he says it could be an important step toward making a treatment plan personalized for each patient.
You know, with this gene score combined with other factors, lifestyle, sex, ancestry, other genes, maybe we could develop a truly accurate test for GLP-1.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And the researcher there, just a quick little pin or a way to, loop this conversation or the reporting there. He says he wants to dive deeper into researching what drives obesity for an individual and then ways to identify treatments that would likely work for each individual patient. So something very interesting for the researchers there. Reminder, we do update all of the top stories, breaking stories, updates, our original investigations and reporting, all there for you on our homepage, wave3.com. Very easy to navigate. You can see, of course, at the very top of this thumbnail, our David Mattingly's visit down to Frankfurt, where Buffalo Trace was celebrating rolling out their 9 millionth barrel of bourbon made since Prohibition. But of course, looking at all of the different kinds of stories and updates we do have, including the one from a little bit later in this afternoon of Joseph Lawson's appeal to the Kentucky Supreme Court. Scrolling down, all uploaded there thanks to our digital team as they get this information and share it not just as fast as they can with these updates on the homepage of our website, but sent as push alerts to you through the Wave News app, through the Wave Weather app as well, when the storm tracking team has that information to share with you as it is happening, if there is any active weather going on. We've hit that 8:45 mark. As a reminder, folks, make sure to reach out to us if there's ever anything going on as far as stories. It could be, beyond something you want us to look into. It could be part of our new What's Good series, highlighting people doing great things in the community. Make sure to leave comments here on the stream feed of the comment thread for our social media channels, reaching out to our newsroom by phone or by email. Great tools. Just ways to connect and make sure we have those channels where we can communicate and further look into a lot of these stories for our community and see what's going on out there. Always appreciate your time at these times of night, joining us, whether that's through the Wave Now app or on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and X. We're going to be getting ready for tonight's newscast at 11 o'clock from some updates into some police cases and investigations and a new plan or proposal for building across the river out in New Albany. So that'll be coming up from our Logan Perone and our Julia Richardson. Those are original reports coming up tonight on Wave News at 11. We'll certainly look forward to sharing those with you. I'm Jose Sosaya here in the Wave Now studio, appreciating your time. We'll see you back here tomorrow night at 8:05.